The stars had been quiet for so long that the Vorthak Empire believed they owned everything. Their ships moved through space like metal sharks, hunting for new worlds to claim. For thousands of years, they had found nothing but empty planets and simple creatures that could barely think. Commander Hyunwoo stood at the window of Luna Base, looking at Earth below. The blue and green planet spun slowly in the darkness. He had been watching the stars for 10 years, and they had always been peaceful. Today felt different. The alarm started screaming at exactly 14:30 Earth time. Hyunwoo ran to the control room where dozens of people were staring at their screens with wide eyes. The communications officer, a young woman named Mira, turned to him with a pale face. "Sir, we're getting signals from outside the solar system," she said. Her voice was shaking. "They're not natural signals. Someone is sending them." Hyunwoo felt his heart beating faster. "Show me." The main screen lit up with strange patterns of light and sound. The computer was trying to translate the message, but it was taking time. Everyone in the room was silent, waiting. Then the translation appeared on the screen. The words were simple and cold: surrender or be eliminated. For a moment, nobody moved, nobody spoke. Then Hyunwoo grabbed the emergency phone that connected directly to Earth's government leaders. "This is Luna Base," he said when someone answered. "We have a problem. A big problem. On Earth, politicians and military leaders were having emergency meetings. They had always known this day might come, but they had hoped it never would. Now alien ships were coming, and Earth had to decide what to do. The alien fleet was massive. Admiral Kethavar commanded over 300 ships, each one bigger than Earth's largest battleship. He sat in his command chair, looking at the small blue planet on his screen. To him, Earth looked like every other world he had conquered. "How many intelligent creatures live there?" he asked his science officer. "About 8 billion, Admiral. They have basic technology, but nothing that can hurt us." Kethavar nodded. "It would be easy, just like always. The creatures on this planet would see his ships and surrender immediately. Then his empire would have another world to use. But he was wrong about the humans." Back on Luna Base, Hyunwoo was talking to Colonel Tae-ho, who was in charge of Earth's Pacific Defense Grid. Tae-ho was an older man who had fought in many wars but never against aliens. "How long do we have?" Tae-ho asked. "The computer says their ships will reach Earth in 18 hours, Hyunwoo replied. "And how many ships are coming?" Hyunwoo looked at his screen again. The numbers made him feel sick. "Over 300 large ships, plus thousands of smaller ones." Tae-ho was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Tell every military base on Earth to prepare for war. Tell every pilot to get ready to fly. Tell everyone to get ready to fight. Sir, do you think we can win?" Tae-ho smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I don't know, Hyunwoo, but I know we're going to try." All over Earth, people were getting the news. Families watched their television screens as reporters talked about the alien ships coming toward them. Some people were scared. Some people were angry. Some people just sat quietly, trying to understand what was happening. Lieutenant So Young was in her fighter jet at Osan Air Base in South Korea. She had been a pilot for 5 years, but she had never expected to fight aliens. Her plane was small compared to the alien ships, but it was fast and it had weapons. "All pilots, listen carefully," came the voice of her commander through her radio. "The enemy ships are big and strong, but they don't know how we fight. Use that against them." So Young checked her weapons one more time. She thought about her family in Seoul, about her little brother who wanted to be a pilot like her. She was going to protect them no matter what. The alien ships appeared in Earth's sky like dark clouds. People all over the world looked up and saw them blotting out the sun. The ships were so big that they created shadows on the ground below. Admiral Keth Var sent another message to Earth. You have 24 hours to surrender completely. If you do not, we will destroy your cities one by one. The answer came from Colonel Tejo himself. He stood in front of cameras from around the world and spoke in a clear, strong voice. We are the people of Earth, he said. We have lived on this planet for thousands of years. We have built our homes here. We have raised our children here. This is our world, and we will not give it to you. If you want Earth, come and take it. Admiral Keth Var was surprised when he heard the translation. In all his years of conquest, no planet had ever refused to surrender. The creatures on those worlds always gave up when they saw his fleet. These humans were different. They don't understand how powerful we are, he told his officers. We will show them. But as the alien ships moved closer to Earth, something unexpected happened. Human ships rose from the planet to meet them. The Earth ships were smaller and weaker, but there were many of them, and they were flying in patterns that the aliens had never seen before. Captain Jin Su led a squadron of fighters toward the alien fleet. His job was to protect the civilian ships that were evacuating people from the big cities. He knew his small fighters couldn't destroy the alien battleships, but maybe they could slow them down. Remember, he told his pilots, we're not trying to win this battle. We're trying to buy time for people to get to safety. The first battle began in the darkness of space, high above Earth. Human fighters darted between the massive alien ships like small fish swimming around whales. The aliens fired their weapons, but the human ships were too fast and moved in ways the aliens couldn't predict. On the planet's surface, Major Yunji was organizing the defense of Seoul. She had soldiers, placing weapons on rooftops and digging trenches in parks. The people of the city were being moved to underground shelters, but many refused to leave. This is our home, an old man told her. We will fight for it. Yunji looked at the old man and saw the same determination in his eyes that she felt in her heart. These aliens didn't understand humans at all. They thought humans would be easy to defeat because they had better weapons and bigger ships. They were about to learn they were wrong. As the first day of the invasion ended, Admiral Keth Var looked at his battle reports with confusion. His ships had destroyed many human vessels, but the humans kept fighting. They didn't run away or ask for mercy. They attacked his ships again and again, even when they knew they couldn't win. Why don't they surrender? He asked his science officer. I don't understand it either, Admiral. On every other world, the creatures gave up when they saw our power. Admiral Keth Var stared at Earth on his screen. The blue planet looked so small and peaceful, but the creatures living on it were fighting like nothing he had ever seen before. He was beginning to realize that this conquest would not be easy. And deep underground on Earth, in hidden bunkers and secret bases, humans were already making plans. They were studying the alien ships, learning about alien weapons, and preparing for a war that would last much longer than anyone expected. The galaxy had been quiet for thousands of years, but that quiet was about to end forever. The morning sun rose over Earth, but huge alien ships blocked much of its light. Admiral Keth Var stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the planet that refused to surrender. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. Send landing forces to their major cities, he ordered. If they will not give up, we will take their cities one by one. His officers moved quickly to obey. Across the Vorthak fleet, thousands of dropships prepared to carry alien soldiers to Earth's surface. Each ship held 50 warriors, armed with weapons that could cut through steel like paper. Lieutenant So Young was flying her fighter above Seoul when she saw the first dropships falling from the sky like metal rain. Her radio crackled with urgent voices from other pilots and ground control. "All fighters' priority targets are the dropships," came the voice of her commander. "Do not let them reach the civilian areas." So Young pushed her fighter toward the nearest dropship. It was 10 times bigger than her plane, covered in thick armor that could stop most weapons. But she had been studying the alien ships all night, and she had noticed something important. The dropships had weak spots where the armor plates connected. If she could hit those spots with her missiles, she might be able to damage them. She flew straight at the dropship, ignoring the alien weapons firing at her. At the last second, she fired her missiles and pulled up sharply. The missiles hit the weak spot, and the dropship began to spin out of control. "That's how we do it!" she shouted into her radio. "Hit the connections between their armor plates!" Other pilots heard her and began using the same tactic. Many dropships were destroyed before they could reach the ground, but many more got through. Colonel Taeho was in his command center, watching reports come in from all over the world. Alien forces were landing in New York, London, Tokyo, and dozens of other cities. The aliens had superior weapons and armor, but they were fighting in unfamiliar territory against people who knew every street and building. "Sir," said one of his officers, "the aliens are demanding that all government leaders surrender immediately." Taeho looked at the young officer. The man was scared, which was natural. Everyone was scared, but fear could make people stronger if they used it correctly. "Tell them that our government leaders are busy," Taeho said. "They're busy organizing our defense." On the surface, Major Yunji was leading her soldiers through the streets of Seoul. The first alien forces had landed in the city center, and they were advancing toward the government buildings. But they were moving slowly, carefully, like they expected easy resistance. "Set up crossfire positions in those buildings," she told her sergeants. "When the aliens come down this street, hit them from 3 sides at once." Sergeant Dong Hyun was positioning his squad on the 3rd floor of an office building. Through the windows, he could see alien soldiers moving down the street below. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms, each carrying weapons that glowed with blue energy. "Wait until they're in the middle of the street," he whispered to his men. "Then hit them with everything we have." The alien patrol walked straight into the trap. When Dong Hyun gave the signal, gunfire erupted from 3 buildings at once. The aliens were caught completely by surprise. Their armor protected them from some bullets, but not all of them. Several aliens fell, and the others ran for cover. But the aliens learned quickly. They called for support, and within minutes, flying vehicles appeared above the buildings where the humans were hiding. Energy beams cut through the walls like they were made of paper. "Fall back to secondary positions," Yoonji ordered through the radio. "Use hit-and-run tactics. Don't try to hold ground." This was something the aliens didn't understand. In their previous conquests, the defending armies had tried to hold their positions until they were destroyed. These humans were different. They attacked, caused damage, then disappeared before the aliens could respond effectively. Captain Jin-Soo was still fighting in space above Earth. His squadron had been reduced from 20 fighters to only 7, but they were still harassing the alien fleet. He had learned that the huge alien ships had trouble hitting small, fast targets that flew in unpredictable patterns. "Jin-Soo," came a voice through his radio. It was Commander Hyun-woo from Luna Base. We need you to do something very dangerous. What is it? We need detailed scans of their main ship. Get as close as you can and let your computer record everything. Jinsu looked at the alien flagship. It was enormous, covered with weapons that could destroy his fighter with one shot. Flying close to it would probably be suicide. Understood, he said. I'm going in. He flew his fighter straight toward the flagship, zigzagging to avoid the energy beams that filled the space around him. His computer was recording everything, mapping the ship's weapons, armor, and weak points. The aliens threw everything they had at him. Hundreds of weapons fired at his tiny fighter. But Jinsu flew like a man who had nothing to lose, because in many ways he didn't. If Earth fell, everything he cared about would be gone anyway. Somehow, he made it close enough to get the scans before pulling away. His fighter was damaged and barely flying, but the information he had gathered would be sent to every human military base on Earth. Dr. Subin was in an underground laboratory beneath Seoul, studying pieces of alien technology that had been recovered from destroyed dropships. She was a materials scientist who had spent her life studying metals and ceramics, but now she was trying to understand alien engineering. Their armor is incredibly strong, she told her team, but it's not perfect. Look at this. She showed them a piece of alien armor that had been damaged by human weapons. Under her microscope, they could see tiny cracks spreading through the material. Their armor is designed to stop energy weapons, not kinetic weapons like our bullets, she explained. If we can hit it enough times in the same spot, it will break. This information was immediately sent to every human unit fighting the aliens. The word spread quickly. Concentrate fire on the same spots to break through alien armor. Admiral Kethvar was becoming frustrated. His forces were winning, but not as quickly as they should have been. These humans were using tactics he had never seen before. They didn't fight like any other species he had conquered. How many of our soldiers have been lost? He asked. More than expected, Admiral. His aide replied carefully. The humans are resourceful. Kethvar studied the battle reports. Humans were attacking his forces and then disappearing. They were hitting his dropships in their weak spots. They were using their knowledge of their own cities against his soldiers. These creatures are more dangerous than they appear, he told his officers. Increase the attack. I want this planet conquered within 3 days. But even as he gave the order, Kethvar felt something he hadn't felt in decades of conquest: uncertainty. These humans were not like other species. They didn't seem to understand that they were supposed to lose. On Earth, the battle was spreading to every continent. In New York, humans were fighting aliens in the subway tunnels. In London, they were using the old wartime bunkers to launch surprise attacks. In Tokyo, they were turning the crowded city into a maze where aliens got lost and separated from their units. Lieutenant So Young was refueling her fighter at a hidden airbase when she got new orders. The aliens were bringing in their heavy assault ships to destroy Earth's remaining cities. We can't stop those ships with our fighters, her commander told the pilots, but we can make them pay for every meter they advance. So Young climbed back into her cockpit, knowing that many of her fellow pilots wouldn't survive the day. But she also knew that every alien ship they destroyed, every minute they delayed the enemy, gave more humans time to reach safety and prepare for the long fight ahead. As the second day of the invasion began, both sides were learning about each other. The aliens learned that humans were unpredictable, stubborn, and willing to sacrifice themselves for their people. The humans learned that aliens could be beaten, that their technology wasn't magic, and that courage could sometimes overcome superior firepower. But the real lesson was still to come. Neither side yet understood that this was not just a battle for one planet. This was the beginning of something that would change the entire galaxy. The aliens thought they were conquering another primitive world. The humans thought they were just defending their home. Both were wrong. They were starting a war that would awaken species across the stars and teach the galaxy a new meaning of the word resistance. The third day of the invasion began with fire raining from the sky. Admiral Kethvar had grown tired of the human resistance and ordered his ships to begin orbital bombardment of Earth's major cities. Energy beams cut through the atmosphere like giant swords, turning buildings into dust and glass. Captain Jin Su watched from his damaged fighter as Seoul disappeared under a curtain of alien fire. His home city, where he had grown up and learned to fly, was being destroyed before his eyes. But instead of despair, he felt something else, pure burning anger. "All remaining fighters, this is Jin Su," he said into his radio. "They want to destroy our cities? Let's destroy their ships." Only 37 human fighters were still flying in Earth's orbital space. Against 300 alien warships, it seemed hopeless. But the human pilots had learned to work together in ways the aliens couldn't understand. "Form up in Delta pattern," Jin Su ordered. "We're going to hit their flagship." The alien flagship was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons, and protected by thick armor. But Jin Su had been studying the scans he had taken earlier, and he had found something interesting. "Look at the rear section," he told his pilots. "See those exhaust ports? If we can get missiles inside them, we can damage their main engines." It was an almost impossible task. The exhaust ports were small, heavily defended, and constantly moving as the ship maneuvered. But the human pilots had something the aliens didn't expect: desperation combined with skill. They split into 3 groups and attacked from different directions. The aliens focused their defensive fire on the largest group, allowing the other 2 to get closer. Lieutenant So Young was in the group that reached the ship first. "I'm going in," she announced, pushing her fighter into a steep dive toward the flagship's rear section. Alien weapons fired at her from every direction. Her fighter's armor was hit again and again, but she kept flying. At the last second, she fired her missiles directly into one of the exhaust ports and pulled up sharply. The explosion inside the alien ship was massive. One of the flagship's main engines went offline, causing the huge vessel to list to one side. For the first time since the invasion began, a human attack had seriously damaged a major alien warship. On the planet's surface, Major Yunji was leading the defense of what remained of Seoul. Half the city was in ruins, but the other half had become a fortress. Humans had learned to use the rubble and destroyed buildings as cover, turning every street into a potential battleground. "They're coming from the north," reported Sergeant Dong Hyun through his radio. "About 50 soldiers with 2 heavy vehicles." Yunji looked at her map. The aliens were trying to reach the government complex where important officials were coordinating the global defense. She couldn't let them get there. "Team 1, hit them with rockets from the bank building," she ordered. "Team 2, machine gun fire from the hotel. Team 3, be ready to cut off their retreat." The alien force advanced slowly down the main street, their vehicles leading the way. The vehicles were like metal beasts, with thick armor and powerful weapons. But Yunji had noticed that they couldn't turn their main guns upward very well. When the aliens reached the middle of the street, human rockets fired down at them from the tall buildings on both sides. The first vehicle exploded immediately. The second vehicle tried to return fire, but it couldn't hit targets that were directly above it. The alien soldiers jumped out of their vehicles and ran for cover, but Dong Hyun's team was waiting for them. The aliens found themselves trapped in a crossfire, with humans shooting at them from 3 directions. But the aliens were learning too. Instead of retreating, they called for air support. Flying alien vehicles appeared overhead and began destroying the buildings where the humans were hiding. "Fall back to the subway tunnels," Yunji ordered. "We'll fight them underground." Dr. Subin was deep beneath the city, in a laboratory that had been built to survive nuclear war. She was working frantically with a team of scientists to understand alien technology. They had collected pieces from destroyed alien vehicles and weapons, and they were making important discoveries. "Look at this," she said, showing her team a damaged alien weapon. "Their energy weapons work by exciting the molecules in the target. But if we can disrupt the energy field..." She attached a small device she had built to the alien weapon and activated it. The weapon sparked and went dead. "We can build jammers," she explained excitedly. "Small devices that can disable their weapons at close range." Within hours, human engineers were building hundreds of these jammers. They were simple devices that could be carried by individual soldiers. When activated near an alien weapon, they would cause it to malfunction. It wasn't much, but it was something. And in this war, every small advantage mattered. Commander Hyunwoo was still on Luna Base, coordinating communications between Earth's scattered military forces. The base had been damaged by alien attacks, but it was still functioning. From his position, he could see the entire battle unfolding. "Sir," said Communications Officer Mira, "we're getting reports from resistance groups all over the world. London, New York, Tokyo, Sydney. Humans are fighting in every major city." Hyunwoo studied the global map on his screen. Red markers showed where aliens had landed. Blue markers showed where human forces were still fighting. There were far more blue markers than he had expected. "These aliens made a mistake," he told Mira. "They thought if they hit us hard enough, we would give up. But hitting us hard just made us angry." The truth was that humans were discovering something about themselves that they hadn't known before. When their homes and families were threatened, they could fight with a determination that surprised even themselves. In Tokyo, office workers were making bombs in their basements. In New York, taxi drivers were running supply missions through alien-controlled territory. In London, teachers were organizing refugee camps and training civilians to fight. The aliens had expected to conquer a planet of separate, frightened groups. Instead, they had united humanity in a way that had never happened before. Admiral Kethvar was beginning to understand this. His daily reports showed that human resistance was not decreasing as it should have been. Instead, it was getting stronger and more organized. "How is this possible?" he asked his science officer. "We have destroyed their major military bases. We control their cities. Why are they still fighting?" The science officer studied his data carefully before answering. "Admiral, I think we misunderstood these creatures. They don't fight just for territory or resources. They seem to fight for abstract concepts." "What do you mean?" "They fight for ideas, Admiral. Family, freedom, home. These are not things we can destroy with our weapons." Kethvar was silent for a long moment. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered anything like this. Other species fought for survival, but these humans seemed to fight for something more. "Double our forces," he finally ordered. "If we cannot break their spirit, we will destroy their ability to resist." But even as he gave the order, Kethvar felt doubt creeping into his mind. He had conquered 47 worlds, but none of them had been like this. None of them had shown him that maybe, just maybe, superior weapons were not enough to guarantee victory. Captain Jinsu was preparing for another attack on the alien fleet when he received an unexpected message. It was from his younger brother, Minho, who was trapped in the ruins of Seoul. Jinsu, the message said, I know you're fighting up there. We're fighting down here too. Don't worry about us. Just keep hitting them as hard as you can. Jinsu closed his eyes for a moment, thinking about his family, his friends, his city. Then he opened his eyes and looked at the alien ships that filled the sky above his home. All fighters, he said into his radio. Prepare for attack run 7. Target the alien communications array. As his small squadron of damaged fighters flew toward the massive alien fleet, Jinsu thought about something his father had told him when he was young. Sometimes the biggest enemy isn't the one you can't beat. It's the one you can't understand. The aliens were learning that lesson now. They could destroy human cities, but they couldn't understand human determination. They could kill human soldiers, but they couldn't kill human hope. And deep in the underground tunnels and hidden bases, humans were learning lessons of their own. They were learning that courage was contagious, that ordinary people could do extraordinary things, and that sometimes fighting for something bigger than yourself could make you stronger than you ever imagined. The battle for Earth was far from over, but something important had changed. The aliens were no longer fighting a weak, primitive species. They were fighting an enemy that refused to accept defeat, and that was something they had never faced before. The burning sky above Earth had become a symbol. To the aliens, it was proof of their power. To the humans below, it was proof that some things were worth fighting for, no matter the cost. 2 weeks had passed since the invasion began, and Earth was dying. Admiral Kethvar stood before the massive weapon that would end this stubborn resistance once and for all. The planet-killer device could crack a world in half, turning it into nothing but floating rocks and dead space. "Are you certain this is necessary?" asked his science officer. Kethvar looked at the reports from Earth. Human forces were still fighting in every major city. They had destroyed dozens of his ships, killed thousands of his soldiers, and showed no signs of surrendering. No planet had ever resisted this long. "They have made their choice," he said coldly. "If they will not submit, they will serve as an example to other worlds." On Earth, Sergeant Dong Hyun was among the last defenders at Seoul Command Center. The building had been hit by alien weapons so many times that half of it had collapsed. But the communications equipment was still working. Through the broken windows, he could see alien forces surrounding them. "Sir," he said to Major Yunji, "they're demanding we surrender the command center." Yunji looked around at her remaining soldiers. There were only 12 of them left from a unit that had started with over 200. They were tired, hungry, and running out of ammunition, but they were still fighting. "Tell them we're busy," she said. "We're busy protecting our home." The alien commander outside the building was confused by this response. He had given these humans a chance to live. Why were they choosing to die instead? In the underground laboratory, Dr. Su Bin was working on her most important project yet. She had been studying the alien communication systems, trying to understand how they worked. What she had discovered could change everything. "The aliens use quantum entanglement for their communications," she explained to her team. "If we can disrupt their quantum field, we can cut off communication between their ships and their home world." Her assistant, a young engineer named Bo-Ram, looked at the complex equations on the screen. "Can we build a device that would work?" "I think so," Su Bin said. "But it would take all the power from the city's main reactor, and it would only work once." They both knew what that meant. If they tried this and failed, they would have no power left for anything else. But if they didn't try, Earth would fall anyway. Captain Jin Su was flying his 19th mission against the alien fleet. His fighter was held together with spare parts and determination. Of the original squadron of 20 fighters, only 3 were still flying. "Jin Su," came a voice through his radio. It was Lieutenant So Young. "I'm seeing something strange on my scanner. The big alien ships are moving into a different formation." Jin Su looked at his own scanner and felt his blood turn cold. The alien ships were arranging themselves around a massive vessel he had never seen before. It was 10 times bigger than their largest battleship, and it was powering up weapons that made the air itself glow. All units," he broadcast, on the emergency frequency. "The aliens are preparing some kind of superweapon. Everyone needs to get underground immediately." On Luna Base, Commander Hyun-woo was watching the same thing through his telescopes. The alien weapon was like nothing in Earth's databases, but the way the aliens were positioning themselves suggested they were about to do something terrible. "Mira," he said to his communications officer, "send a message to all human forces on Earth. Tell them to get as deep underground as possible in the next 10 minutes. "Sir," Mira said, her voice shaking, "what are they going to do?" Hyun-woo looked at the alien weapon through his telescope again. "I think they're going to try to crack the planet in half." In the Seoul Command Center, Dong-hyun was helping to evacuate the last of the important files to the deep bunkers below the city. The alien forces outside were preparing for their final assault, but that didn't matter anymore. Something much worse was coming. "Everyone to the deep shelters," Yoon-ji ordered. "Leave everything else and run." As they ran through the corridors toward the underground bunkers, Dong-hyun thought about his unit, his friends who had died fighting for this building. They had bought time for Earth's people to prepare for whatever came next. Maybe that was enough. Dr. Subin was making the final connections on her quantum disruptor when the evacuation alarm began sounding. She looked at Bo-Ram and made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. "Take the plans and get to the deep shelter," she told her assistant. "I'm going to stay and activate the device." "But Dr. Subin, you'll be killed." "Maybe, but if this works, Earth's children will have a chance to fight back someday." Bo-Ram took the plans and ran toward the shelter, tears streaming down her face. Behind her, Subin began the activation sequence for the quantum disruptor. Admiral Kethavar gave the order to fire the planet-killer weapon. Energy that could destroy a moon focused into a beam aimed at Earth's core. The weapon fired, and for a moment, space itself seemed to burn. But something unexpected happened. Just as the energy beam reached Earth's atmosphere, it flickered and dispersed. Instead of cracking the planet, it only devastated the surface. Cities were destroyed, forests burned, oceans boiled, but Earth itself remained whole. "What happened?" Kethavar demanded. His science officer was staring at his instruments, in confusion. "Sir, something interfered with our quantum targeting system. The weapon lost focus at the last moment. Far below the ruins of Seoul, in a deep bunker that had survived the surface devastation, Bo-Ram clutched the plans for the quantum disruptor and whispered a prayer of thanks for Dr. Subin's sacrifice. The planet-killer weapon had failed, but Earth was still dying. The surface was a wasteland of fire and radiation. Most of the major cities were gone. Billions of people were dead. But in deep bunkers and underground shelters around the world, millions had survived. Dong-hyun was in a bunker beneath Seoul with about 300 other people. They had food for maybe 6 months if they were careful. The radiation on the surface would take years to fade. But they were alive and they were still human. "What do we do now?" asked a young girl who had lost her parents in the attack. Dong-hyun looked at the child and then at the other survivors around him. They were teachers, engineers, farmers, students, ordinary people who had survived the worst attack in human history. "Now we wait," he said. "We learn, we prepare, and when the time is right, we make them pay for what they did to our world." Admiral Kethvar was frustrated beyond words. Earth was devastated, but it was not destroyed. And somehow, impossibly, he was still receiving reports of human resistance from underground. "How many of them survived?" he asked. "Our estimates suggest several million humans are still alive in underground shelters," his science officer reported. "They have enough supplies to last for months, possibly years." Kethvar stared at the smoking ruin that had once been a blue and green planet. He had used his most powerful weapon, and still the humans would not die. "Leave a garrison fleet," he finally ordered. "We have other worlds to conquer. When these creatures finally starve or poison themselves with radiation, we will return to claim what is left." But as his main fleet prepared to leave the solar system, Kethvar made a mistake. He left behind only 50 ships to watch Earth, thinking that a devastated planet with a few million survivors posed no threat to his empire. He was wrong about the humans again. In the deep bunkers, children were learning math and science from teachers who had once worked in universities. Engineers were designing new technologies using salvaged alien equipment. Soldiers were training for battles that might not come for years. Captain Jinsu had survived the planet killer attack because he had been on the far side of Luna when it fired. His fighter was one of only 5 human spacecraft still functioning in the solar system. But he was not alone. "Jinsu," came a voice through his radio. It was Commander Hyunwoo. "We've received signals from the deep bunkers. They're asking us to do something important." "What?" "They want us to find any surviving human ships and begin planning for the future. They say Earth's children are going to need teachers, and they want us to learn everything we can about the aliens before they come back." Jinsu looked at the ruined planet below and felt something he hadn't expected to feel. Hope. The surface of Earth was dead, but humanity was not. They had survived the worst the aliens could do, and they were already planning for tomorrow. The aliens thought they had won. They thought that a devastated world full of survivors hiding underground was the end of the story. But they had never understood humans, and they didn't understand them now. For humans, this was not the end of the story. This was just the beginning of a very long, very patient plan for revenge. And in the deep places beneath the ruined surface, Earth's children were already learning the skills they would need to take their world back. 3 years had passed since the day the sky burned. The surface of Earth was still a poisoned wasteland, but beneath the ground, humanity was building something the aliens never expected. A new civilization designed for war. Engineer Jae-min stood in the main cavern of New Seoul, looking up at the ceiling that his team had carved from solid rock. The underground city stretched for kilometers in every direction, connected to dozens of other hidden settlements by tunnels that ran beneath the ruined surface. "The ventilation system is working perfectly," reported his assistant, a young woman named Hye-jin, who had been a college student when the invasion began. "We can support 10,000 people down here indefinitely." Jae-min nodded, but his mind was already working on the next project. They needed more workshops, more laboratories, more training facilities. Every day brought new refugees from the surface settlements, people who had been living in small groups and had finally found the underground network. In the education center, teacher Min-ho was conducting a class that would have seemed strange before the invasion. 20 children, ages 8 to 15, were learning basic electronics alongside alien language and culture. Remember, he told his students, the Vorthak have 4 arms, but they think differently than we do. They are logical, predictable. When we understand how they think, we can predict what they will do. A 10-year-old girl named Yu-Jin raised her hand. Teacher Min-ho, when will we go back to the surface? Min-ho looked at the girl, whose parents had died in the initial bombardment. Like all the children in the underground cities, she had grown up knowing that her purpose was to prepare for the day when humans would reclaim their world. When you're ready, Yu-Jin. When all of us are ready. The children nodded seriously. They had never known a world at peace, but they understood their mission with a clarity that sometimes surprised the adults around them. Commander Ye-Jin had been presumed dead in the first day of bombing, but she had actually been trapped in a collapsed military bunker for 2 weeks before other survivors found her. Now she led the underground resistance network that connected all the hidden settlements across the former United States. Report from Sector 7, said her communications officer, a former NASA engineer named Tae-min. They've successfully raided an alien supply depot and recovered enough power cells to last 6 months. Ye-Jin studied the map on her wall, marked with pins showing every known alien outpost. The occupation force that Admiral Kethvar had left behind was smaller than the invasion fleet, but they were still dangerous. More importantly, they were careless. The aliens think we're just survivors trying to stay alive, she told her staff. They don't realize we're building an army. That was true. The Vorthak garrison commander, Admiral Veltar, spent most of his time writing reports about the cleanup operation on Earth. As far as he was concerned, the few million human survivors were a minor problem that would solve itself through starvation and radiation sickness. He was wrong on both counts. The humans had learned to grow food in underground hydroponic gardens, and they had developed treatments for radiation exposure using salvaged alien medical technology. Dr. Bo Ram had taken over Dr. Subin's work after the older woman's sacrifice, during the Planet Killer attack. She was now Earth's leading expert on alien technology, working in a laboratory carved from solid rock beneath what had once been Seoul. "We've made a breakthrough," she announced to her research team. The alien communication implants can be reprogrammed. She held up a small device that had been removed from a dead alien soldier. It was about the size of a coin and contained technology that was decades ahead of anything humans had built before the invasion. If we can implant these in our own people and program them correctly, we can listen to alien communications. We might even be able to send false information to their commanders. The implications were staggering. For 3 years, the humans had been fighting blind, never knowing what the aliens were planning. Now they might be able to see through the enemy's eyes. On the surface, Corporal Namjoon was leading a scouting mission through the ruins of what had once been Busan. His team of 6 soldiers moved like ghosts through the twisted metal and melted. Concrete, gathering intelligence on alien patrol patterns. "Contact ahead," whispered his point man, a former police officer named Il-sung. "1 alien vehicle, 2 guards." Namjoon used hand signals to position his team. They had practiced this particular ambush hundreds of times in the underground training facilities. The aliens were predictable in their patrol routes, always following the same paths through the ruins. The attack lasted 30 seconds. The alien guards were dead before they could sound an alarm, and the vehicle was disabled with a small explosive device that Boram's team had designed. But the most important part came next. "Download everything from their computer," Namjoon ordered Il-sung, who was their electronics specialist. "We need to know where they've been and where they're going next." This was the new type of warfare that humans had developed. They didn't try to hold territory or win battles. Instead, they gathered information, struck quickly, and disappeared back into the underground before the aliens could respond. Admiral Veltar was beginning to notice that his patrols were losing equipment and soldiers more often than his reports indicated they should, but he attributed this to accidents and equipment failures rather than organized resistance. "Perhaps we should increase patrol frequency," suggested his aide. "No," Veltar replied. "We cannot waste resources on a dead planet. The surviving humans are not a threat." That was exactly what Commander Yejin wanted him to think. Every alien patrol that disappeared was carefully made to look like an accident. Every piece of stolen equipment was replaced with broken human machinery so the theft wouldn't be discovered immediately. The humans were playing a very long game, building their strength while making sure the aliens never realized how organized and dangerous they had become. In New Tokyo, former businessman Kyung-soo was running a different kind of operation. He had been recruited into the resistance because of his skills at managing complex logistics, but now he was doing something much more dangerous. Using forged identity documents and an alien communication implant that had been surgically hidden. Under his skin, he was posing as a human collaborator working for the alien administration. Most of the real collaborators were people who had given up hope and were just trying to survive, but a few were actually providing useful information to the resistance. "The aliens are planning to move their main command center," he reported, during a secret meeting with Yejin's representatives. "They think the current location is too exposed to surface raids." This intelligence was immediately passed to resistance cells across the planet. If the aliens were moving their command center, it meant they were vulnerable during the transfer. It might be the opportunity the humans had been waiting for. Teacher Minho was working late in his classroom, preparing lessons for the next day, when young Yu-jin appeared in his doorway. "Teacher, I've been practicing the alien language like you taught us," she said. "I can understand their radio transmissions now." Minho looked at the girl with a mixture of pride and sadness. She was only 13 years old, but she could speak 3 alien languages and could field strip a rifle in complete darkness. The children of the underground had learned skills that no child should need to know. "What did you hear on their transmissions?" he asked. "They're scared," Yu-jin said simply. "They keep talking about equipment failures and missing patrols. They don't understand what's happening to them." Minho smiled. "Good. Fear makes enemies stupid, and stupid enemies make mistakes." As the 3rd anniversary of the invasion approached, humanity was no longer the same species that had once lived in the cities above ground. They had become something harder, more focused, more patient. Every person in the underground cities understood their role in the long plan to reclaim their world. The aliens thought they had conquered Earth. They thought the remaining humans were just refugees hiding in holes, waiting to die. But they were wrong. The humans weren't hiding from the aliens. They were studying them, learning from them, preparing to become something that the Vorthak Empire had never faced before. An enemy that could think like them, fight like them, and plan better than them. And deep in the tunnels beneath the ruins of civilization, children like Yu-jin were growing up with one simple goal: to take back their world from the aliens who had stolen it. They were humanity's secret weapon, and the Yasi-Bet aliens didn't even know they existed. The real war hadn't even started yet. 5 years after the burning sky, Earth had become something Admiral Veltar never expected: a planet-sized intelligence network. He sat in his command center, looking at reports that made no sense. Equipment was failing at exactly the wrong times. Supply convoys were getting lost. His soldiers were reporting equipment malfunctions that his engineers couldn't explain. "Perhaps we should request reinforcements from the home fleet," suggested his communications officer. "For what?" Veltar replied irritably. "To help us manage. A few thousand survivors hiding in caves." What Veltar didn't know was that those few thousand survivors had become several million highly trained humans living in underground cities that spanned continents, and they were listening to every word he said. Deep beneath the ruins of Sol, Dr. Boram was monitoring alien communications from a facility that would have impressed the engineers who built the old internet. Fiber optic cables ran through tunnels that connected every major underground settlement on Earth. Humans could now communicate instantly across the entire planet without the aliens detecting their signals. "Confirmed," she announced to her team. "The aliens are using quantum encryption for their most important communications, but we've broken their secondary channels." On her screen, translated alien conversations scrolled past in real time. Supply requests, patrol schedules, personal messages between soldiers. The humans were reading it all. But the most important discovery was something that changed everything the humans thought they knew about their enemy. "Look at this," Boram said, highlighting a communication from Admiral Veltar to his superiors. "He's reporting that Earth is fully pacified and ready for colonization." Her assistant, a former computer programmer named Wu Jin, read the message carefully. "But that's not true. We're still fighting them." "Exactly. Which means they're lying to their own command structure. The question is, why?" Agent Kyung-soo had the answer. After 5 years of posing as a collaborator, he had earned enough trust to gain access to the alien administrative computers. What he found there shocked even the Resistance leadership. "They're not just occupying Earth," he reported during a secret meeting with Commander Ye-jin. "They're hiding it from their own empire." Ye-jin stared at the intelligence files that Kyung-soo had stolen. "What do you mean, hiding it?" "According to these records, Admiral Veltar and his officers have been falsifying their reports to the Vorthak High Command. They've been claiming that Earth was completely destroyed by the planet-killer weapon. As far as the Empire knows, this solar system is empty space." The implications hit Ye-jin like a physical blow. "They're planning to claim Earth for themselves. It's not an official conquest. It's theft." This explained so much. Why the garrison was so small. Why they seemed more concerned with secrecy than security. Why they never called for reinforcements when equipment went missing. The aliens weren't just occupying Earth. They were stealing it from their own empire. Teacher Min Ho was explaining this discovery to his advanced students, who were now young. Adults trained in alien languages, technology, and military tactics. "This gives us an opportunity," he told them. "If we can expose what Admiral Veltar is doing, the Vorthak Empire will have to respond. They might even withdraw his forces to punish him." Yu Jin, now 18 and one of his best students, raised her hand. "But teacher, wouldn't that just bring more aliens to Earth?" "Not necessarily," Minho replied. "According to the stolen files, the Vorthak Empire is fighting wars on 17 different fronts. They can't afford to waste chips on a planet they think is already destroyed. The Resistance leadership was already making plans based on this intelligence. But first, they needed to be absolutely certain about what they had discovered." Lieutenant, Hai Jin was leading a reconnaissance mission to the Alien Command Center, which had been moved to a fortified position in what used to be Tokyo Bay. Her team had spent months preparing for this operation, studying alien security protocols and timing their infiltration perfectly. "Remember," she whispered to her team as they approached the facility underwater. "We're not here to fight. We need those communication records intact." They emerged from the contaminated water near the base of the alien structure. It was a massive tower that rose from the bay like a metal mountain, surrounded by defensive platforms and patrol vessels. But the humans had learned to move like the radiation-poisoned wildlife that still inhabited the ruins. The aliens had stopped paying attention to small heat signatures moving through the dead zones around their bases. Inside the facility, Corporal Il-sung was using skills he had learned from 5 years of stealing alien technology, the computer. Systems were complex, but the humans had been studying them for years. "Got it," he whispered into his radio. "Downloading their complete communication archive with the home fleet." What they found confirmed their worst fears and their greatest hopes at the same time. Admiral Veltar and his officers had been lying to the Vorthak Empire for years. They had reported Earth as completely destroyed while secretly planning to establish their own colony. They were keeping the surviving humans alive as slaves to work in the mines and factories they were building in secret. But more importantly, the stolen communications revealed something incredible. The Vorthak Empire was losing the war. Dr. Boram was analyzing the intelligence when she made the discovery that would change the course of galactic history. "Look at these battle reports," she told Commander Ye-jin. "The Vorthak are fighting 17 different species across 43 star systems. And according to their own military analysis, they're losing." Ye-jin studied the data carefully. "How is that possible? They destroyed our cities with ease." "Because those other species learned to fight differently after the Vorthak conquered their worlds. Look at this report from something called the Kef Rebellion. It says the enemy is using asymmetric warfare and coordinated resistance cells. That sounds familiar, doesn't it?" The truth was staggering. Earth wasn't the first world to resist. The Vorthak Empire. It was just the latest in a growing list of rebellions that were tearing the Empire apart from within, and the humans had developed the most sophisticated resistance network of any species the Vorthak had encountered. "We need to make contact with these other resistance movements," Ye-jin decided. "If we can coordinate our efforts, we could bring down the entire Empire," Boram finished. But first they had to deal with Admiral Veltar and his corrupt garrison. Captain Nam Jun was now leading a special operations unit trained specifically for complex infiltration missions. His target was the alien communication array that connected Earth to the rest of the Vorthak Empire. "Phase 1 is simple," he explained to his team. "We plant our own transmitters in their system. Phase 2 is where it gets interesting." The transmitters were based on Dr. Subin's original quantum disruptor technology, but improved with 5 years of alien technology analysis. They would allow the humans to not just intercept alien communications, but to send their own messages anywhere in the galaxy. The mission was successful, but what happened next surprised even the Resistance leadership. Within hours of the transmitters going online, they began receiving signals from across the galaxy. Dozens of different voices speaking in languages the humans didn't recognize, but with a message that needed no translation. "Is anyone else fighting the Vorthak?" Yujin was the first to decode one of the signals. Working with the alien language, skills she had learned as a child, she managed to translate a message from something called the Andromedan Liberation Front. "We are the children of the dead world Kef 7, the message said. "We have been fighting the Vorthak for 12 years. Are you the humans we have heard about? The ones who survived the planet killer?" For the first time since the invasion began, Humans realized they were not alone in their fight against the Vorthak Empire. There were others scattered across the galaxy who had learned to resist, to hide, to fight back. And somehow, stories about Earth's resistance had spread to these distant worlds. The humans who thought they were just defending their home had become a symbol of hope for oppressed species across the galaxy. Commander Ye-Jin sent the first official message from Earth to the Galactic Resistance Network. This is Earth. We are alive. We are fighting. And we are ready to coordinate our efforts with anyone who wants to see the Vorthak Empire fall. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 17 different species contacted Earth within the first day, sharing intelligence, tactics, and something even more valuable: hope. Admiral Veltar had no idea that his secret colony had just become the command center for a galactic rebellion. He was still filing false reports with his superiors, still planning his retirement to a peaceful colony built on the bones of human civilization. He was about to learn that the humans he thought he had conquered were not just survivors. They were coordinators of the largest resistance movement in galactic history, and they were very, very angry about what had been done to their world. The real war was finally about to begin. The morning of the Great Revelation began in the deepest tunnels beneath New Seoul, where Ye-Jin was coordinating communications with 17 different worlds. Her desk was covered with translation algorithms, star charts, and tactical reports from species she had never heard of 6 months ago. The Andromedan Liberation Front reports they've disabled 3 Vorthak supply convoys, she announced to the Pact Command Center. The Kef survivors say they've retaken their moon bases, and the Zentari resistance has captured an entire battleship. Commander. Ye-Jin looked at the galactic map that now dominated one wall of the facility. Red markers showed Vorthak-controlled systems. Blue markers showed active resistance movements. There were far more blue markers than anyone had expected. "How is this possible?" asked Dr. Bo-Ram. "The Vorthak Empire seemed so powerful when they invaded Earth." "Because we're seeing the real picture now," Ye-Jin replied. "The Vorthak have been fighting a dozen rebellions while pretending to their own people that everything is under control. It was the same pattern everywhere. The Vorthak would conquer a world, claim it was pacified, then spend years fighting hidden resistance movements while reporting continued success to their high command. The empire was built on lies, and those lies were finally catching up with them. Lieutenant Wu Jin was preparing for the most important mission in human history. His job was to infiltrate the alien communication center and upload a virus that would broadcast the truth about Earth to every Vorthak ship in the galaxy. "Remember," Commander Ye-Jin told him, "we get one chance at this. Once they know we're alive and organized, they'll bring the full fleet back to destroy us." "Understood," Wu Jin replied. "But if this works, every resistance movement in the galaxy will know that the Vorthak can be beaten." The virus had taken Dr. Bo-Ram's team 3 months to create. It was designed to override alien security protocols and broadcast a message on every communication frequency in the Vorthak network. The message was simple: Earth's children were alive. They remembered everything, and they were coming for the ones who had burned their world. Captain Ye-Jin was leading the assault team that would secure the communication facility while Wu Jin uploaded the virus. Her soldiers were equipped with weapons that combined human engineering with 5 years of captured alien technology. Teams Alpha and Beta, take the perimeter defenses, she ordered as they approached the facility. Team Gamma, with me to the central tower. The attack began at dawn, when the aliens were changing shifts and their security was weakest. But this wasn't the desperate resistance of 5 years ago. These were soldiers who had trained for half a decade specifically for this moment. The alien guards never knew what hit them. Human fighters moved through their defenses like ghosts, using tactics that the Vorthak had never encountered before. By the time Admiral Veltar realized his communication center was under attack, the humans had already secured the building. "Sir," his aide reported, "the human insurgents have penetrated the main communication array." Veltar stared at the report in disbelief. "Impossible. There are only a few thousand survivors left on this planet." As if in answer to his words, every screen in his command center suddenly displayed the same image: a young human woman speaking directly into the camera. It was Yujin, broadcasting from the captured communication facility. "My name is Yujin. Of Earth," she said, speaking in perfect Vorthak language. "I am 18 years old. I have never seen my world's blue sky because your people burned it away when I was a child." Her words were being transmitted to every Vorthak ship in the galaxy, overriding their security systems with technology they didn't know humans possessed. "You thought you destroyed us," Yujin continued. "You thought we were just another primitive species that would die quietly in the dark. You were wrong." Admiral Veltar was frantically trying to cut the transmission, but his technicians couldn't break through the human virus that had taken control of their entire communication network. "For 5 years we have been learning," Yujin said. "Learning. Your language, your technology, your weaknesses. Learning that you are not the masters of the galaxy you pretend to be." On 17 different worlds, Resistance fighters gathered around their secret receivers to watch this impossible broadcast. A human child was speaking to the entire Vorthak Empire, and the aliens couldn't stop her. "We know about the Kef Rebellion," Yujin continued. "We know about the Andromedan Liberation Front. We know about the Zentari Resistance and all the others. We know that you are losing this war, and we know why. In the Vorthak High Command, thousands of light years away, military leaders were staring at their screens in shock. Earth was supposed to be a dead planet. How could there be organized resistance there?" "You cannot defeat an idea," Yujin said, her young voice carrying across the galaxy. "And the idea that freedom is worth fighting for has spread to every corner of space you thought you controlled." Admiral Veltar finally managed to activate his emergency protocols, cutting his ships off from the galactic communication network. But it was too late. The message had been heard on every Vorthak vessel, and more importantly, it had been heard by every resistance movement in the galaxy. For the first time in decades, the oppressed species of the galaxy had proof that the mighty Vorthak Empire could be challenged. Corporal Il Sung was monitoring alien communications when the first responses began coming in. Within an hour of Yujin's broadcast, resistance movements across the galaxy were coordinating the largest simultaneous uprising in galactic history. "The Andromedans are attacking 3 supply bases," he reported. "The Kef survivors are hitting the Vorthak stronghold in their home system. And something called the Outer Rim Coalition is jamming alien communications across 12 sectors." Commander Yejin watched the tactical display as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Blue. Markers were appearing faster than her computers could track them. "How many resistance movements are there?" she asked. "At least 40 that we know of," Il Sung replied. "Probably more that haven't made contact yet." The galaxy was rising, and Earth had shown them how. But the humans knew their greatest test was still coming. Admiral Kethvar would return with the main fleet, and this time he would not underestimate them. Dr. Boram was already working on the next phase of their plan. "We need to get this information to the Vorthak High Command," she told Yejin. They need to know that Admiral Veltar has been lying to them about Earth. Why would we help them? Because when they find out that one of their own admirals has been stealing an entire planet for his personal colony, they'll have to respond. And while they're dealing with their internal corruption, the resistance movements can hit them everywhere else. It was a dangerous game. The humans were betting that the Vorthak Empire's own bureaucracy would work against them. But it was the only way to prevent the full Imperial fleet from returning to destroy Earth. Agent Kyung-soo volunteered for the most dangerous mission of all, traveling to Vorthak space to deliver evidence of Admiral Veltar's corruption to the Imperial authorities. "I've been posing as a collaborator for 5 years," he told the Resistance leadership. "I know their systems, their protocols. I can get close enough to their command structure to deliver the evidence." It meant almost certain death, but if it worked, it would tear the Vorthak Empire apart from within. As Kyung-soo prepared for his mission, Yoo-jin was receiving messages from across the galaxy. Young people on dozens of worlds had seen her broadcast and were organizing their own resistance. Cells. "They're calling themselves Children of the Burning Sky," she told Commander Ye-jin. "They say if an 18-year-old human can broadcast to the entire galaxy, they can fight the Vorthak in their own homes." The revelation was spreading like wildfire across the galaxy. The Vorthak Empire wasn't an unstoppable force. It was a corrupt bureaucracy held together by lies and fear, and both were failing. Admiral Veltar was preparing his remaining ships for a desperate last stand when he received a message that changed everything. It was from the Vorthak High Command, and it was very short. "Admiral Veltar, you are relieved of command and ordered to return immediately for investigation of unauthorized colonial activity and falsification of military reports. His own empire was abandoning him." As Veltar's ships prepared to retreat from Earth, the humans faced a choice. They could let the corrupt admiral escape, or they could show the galaxy what happened to those who burned children's worlds. Commander Ye-jin made the decision that would echo across the stars for generations. "All units," she broadcast on the frequency that every resistance movement could hear, "this is Earth. We are about to show the galaxy how the children of the burning sky deal with those who murdered their world." The final battle for Earth was about to begin, but this time the aliens were the ones who were afraid. The final battle for Earth began not with fire from the sky, but with a message from the depths of space. Admiral Kethvar had returned with what remained of the Vorthak main fleet, but his transmission to Earth carried a tone that no alien had ever used when speaking to humans before. "Respect, people of Earth." His voice came through the communication systems that humans now controlled completely. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Vorthak Imperial Fleet. I have returned to negotiate." Commander Ye-jin stood in the command center that had once been hidden beneath Seoul, but was now broadcasting openly to 47 resistance movements across the galaxy. She looked at Yoo-jin, who had become the unofficial voice of Earth's children, and smiled. "What do you think we should tell him?" Ye-jin asked. Yoo-jin, now 19 and hardened by 5 years of underground war, considered the question carefully. Around her, the command center was filled with people who had spent their entire adult lives preparing for this moment. "Tell him, we're busy," she said finally. "We're busy coordinating the liberation of the galaxy." It wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either. In the 5 years since the resistance network had been established, the Vorthak Empire had lost control of over half their conquered worlds. The corruption scandal involving Admiral Veltar had exposed decades of falsified reports and stolen resources, causing the imperial government to collapse into civil war. Dr. Boram was monitoring communications from across the galaxy when she noticed something remarkable. "The Vorthak are fighting each other now," she announced. "3 different admirals are claiming to be the legitimate ruler of the Empire." Captain Nam Jun was leading the surface operations that had finally cleared Earth's skies of alien ships. As he stood in the ruins of Seoul, looking up at blue sky for the first time in 5 years, he could see human spacecraft flying overhead. They were ships built in underground factories using captured alien technology, but designed with human engineering principles. "Sir," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Il-sung, "we're receiving surrender requests from Vorthak ground forces all over the planet." Namjoon looked at the alien soldiers who were laying down their weapons. They looked tired, defeated, and very confused about how they had ended up in this situation. "Take them prisoner," he ordered. "But treat them well. They're going to help us understand how their empire worked." This was the new human approach to warfare. They didn't just want to win battles. They wanted to understand their enemies completely so that they could prevent future wars. Admiral Kethvar was learning this lesson the hard way. His fleet of 300 ships had been reduced to less than 50 by constant attacks from human fighters and allied resistance forces. But more importantly, half of his remaining officers had received messages from their home worlds telling them to surrender to the humans and seek asylum. "Admiral," his science officer reported, "we're receiving communications from the new Andromedan government. They're offering safe passage to any Vorthak personnel who defect to the Alliance." Kethavar stared at the message. In just 5 years, the humans had somehow created an alliance of 47 different species. They had turned a defensive war into a galactic revolution. "How did this happen?" he asked. But he already knew the answer. The Vorthak had made the same mistake that bullies always made. They had assumed that because they could hurt someone, that someone would stay hurt. They had never understood that humans didn't fight just to win. They fought to ensure that no one else would have to suffer what they had suffered. Teacher Minho was in what had once been the Underground Education Center, but was now Earth's Galactic Communication Academy. He was teaching a class of young humans who were learning to coordinate resistance movements across dozens of star systems. "Remember," he told his students, "our goal was never just to free Earth. Our goal was to make sure this never happens to anyone else." One of his students, a young man named Jae-ho, who had been born in the underground cities, raised his hand. "Teacher, what do we do when the war's over?" Minho looked at the young man, who had never known peace but had helped create it for others. "We make sure it stays over, Jae-ho. We help other species build the kind of civilization where wars like this don't happen." Agent Kyung-soo had successfully completed his mission to expose Admiral Veltar's corruption, but at a cost that had surprised everyone. The Vorthak High Command had been so grateful for the information that they had offered him citizenship in their empire. "They want to hire humans as intelligence analysts," he reported to Commander Ye-jin. "They say we're better at detecting deception than any species they've encountered." Ye-jin laughed, but it was a bitter sound. 5 years ago, they were trying to exterminate us. Now they want to hire us. What should I tell them? Tell them we'll consider it after they've completed their surrender to the Galactic Alliance. The Galactic Alliance had been Yu-jin's idea. Instead of just coordinating resistance movements, the humans had proposed creating a permanent organization to prevent future conquests by any species. The Alliance now included 53 different worlds, with Earth serving as the coordination center. Lieutenant Wu Jin was standing in the ruins of the Alien Command Center, where he had uploaded the virus that started the Galactic Revolution. The building was now being converted into a memorial to the humans who had died in the invasion, but also to the hope that their sacrifice had created. "Sir," his assistant reported, "we're receiving the final surrender from Admiral Kethvar." Wu Jin looked at the message. After 5 years of fighting the most advanced military force in the galaxy, the humans had won not through superior firepower, but through superior understanding of what the war was really about. The message was simple. The Vorthak Imperial Fleet surrenders unconditionally to Earth and the Galactic Alliance. We request mercy for our personnel and assistance in rebuilding our shattered civilization. Captain Hyejin was preparing for the ceremony that would mark the official end of the war. As the highest-ranking military officer who had survived the entire conflict, she would accept the Vorthak surrender on behalf of Earth. "Are you ready for this?" Commander Yejin asked her. Hyejin looked out at the crowd gathering in what had once been the ruins of Seoul, but was now a rebuilt city that served as the capital of the Galactic Alliance. Representatives from 53 worlds were present, along with thousands of humans who had spent their entire adult lives fighting for this moment. "I'm not sure anyone could be ready for this," Hyejin replied. "5 years ago, we were just trying to survive. Now we're accepting the surrender of a galactic empire." The ceremony was simple, as humans preferred. Admiral Kethvar stood before the assembled representatives and formally surrendered his fleet. But the most important moment came when Yujin stepped forward to address the gathering. "5 years ago, our world burned," she said, speaking in a dozen different languages for the benefit of the alien delegates. "But our children survived, and those children learned something that our enemies never expected. That the strongest weapon in the galaxy isn't a planet-killer device or a battleship. It's the idea that everyone deserves to be free." Sergeant Dong Hyun was standing in the crowd, wearing the uniform of the new Galactic Alliance Defense Force. He thought about all the friends he had lost in the underground wars, all the people who had died so that this moment could happen. They would have liked to see this, he said to Corporal Namjoon, who was standing beside him. "They did see it," Namjoon replied. "Every time we refused to give up, every time we helped another world join the Alliance, every time we proved that the Vorthak could be beaten, they saw it through us." Dr. Boram was in her laboratory, which was now part of the Galactic Alliance. Technology Institute. She was working with scientists from dozens of different worlds to develop new technologies that could only be used for peaceful purposes. The irony, she told her research team, is that the aliens gave us the tools to defeat them. Every piece of technology we captured, every weapon we reverse-engineered, every communication system we hacked, it all came from them. Her assistant, a young Kef scientist named Velmar, nodded. The Vorthak never understood that knowledge, wants to be shared. They tried to keep their technology secret, but that just made them vulnerable to anyone who could figure it out. As the celebration continued above ground, Engineer Jaemin was deep in the tunnels that had once been humanity's only refuge. He was converting the underground cities into something new, a vast archive that would preserve the story of every species that had resisted the Vorthak Empire. "Future generations need to understand what happened here," he told his workers. "Not just the battles and the victories, but the idea that started it all. The idea was simple, but it had changed the galaxy. That normal people, when pushed too far, could become extraordinary. That children who grew up in darkness could create light for others. That a species that refused to accept defeat could teach an entire galaxy the meaning of hope." Admiral Kethvar was preparing for his journey to the Galactic Alliance rehabilitation. center where former Vorthak officers would learn to live in a galaxy where conquest was no longer acceptable. But before he left Earth, he had one more thing to do. He found Yujin in the memorial garden that had been built where the